I just felt like something was off about him.
Right.
Something's wrong with him. Yeah, he's coming to check me out.
I saw him walking back that way and then cut through the back of the houses.
He's got something in his hands. I don't know what his deal is.
They said, "Are you following him?" And I said, "Yes," because I was, in the area. And they said, "We don't need you to do that." And I said, "Okay."
Are you following him?
Yeah.
Okay, we don't need you to do that.
Okay. They always get away.
George is a real person. He's not just whatever images people flash across the screen.
The heart has no color. It's not black, it's not white, it's red.
Tonight, will George Zimmerman beat a murder charge in one of the nation's most highly anticipated trials? It may all depend on who's sitting on that jury. Potential jurors are being grilled all week to determine who will be on the panel. They'll decide whether George Zimmerman pursued an unarmed teen, Trayvon Martin, as he walked home from a convenience store in the rain. Zimmerman insists he fired the deadly shot in self-defense after Trayvon attacked him. Will Zimmerman's own words, however, come back to haunt him?
The guy had moved up, and he saw it. I feel like he saw it. He looked at it, and he said, "You're gonna die tonight." And he reached for it, but he reached, I felt his arm going down to my side, and I grabbed it, and I just grabbed my firearm, and I shot him.
Let's debate it. Will they be able to find an impartial jury? And if so, should that jury be sequestered? Starting with Michael Skolnick, editor-in-chief of GlobalGrind.com.
I certainly think they can find an impartial jury. I was just there in the courtroom for the past 2 days. You have folks down in Florida. Some folks haven't even heard of the case. A woman came in the courtroom yesterday and said the first time she heard George Zimmerman's name was yesterday. A guy came in today and said he never even heard of this case, ever before. So I truly believe you'll find an impartial jury. But we have to remember, this case can be won or lost by who's on that jury.
Rolanda Watts hosts Sundays with Rolanda on Blog Talk Radio.
I believe they can find an impartial jury. I think it's going to be like finding a needle in a haystack, but that's when we're going to have to really see the skills of these attorneys. You're absolutely right, Michael. This jury is this is going to be everything about this case. And I do believe you can find an impartial jury. I do believe that jury members will recognize the gravitas in this case and step up to their responsibility. It may take a long time, but I do believe that they can find them. I find it hard to believe that anybody in that county has not heard of this case and at least formed some little bit of an opinion about it. But this is where the skill of those attorneys is really going to have to come to fore.
You know what I did this afternoon? I took the reenactment video that George Zimmerman taped with law enforcement very soon after the deadly incident, and I watched it. It was about 17 minutes, and it was fascinating. A crucial part of George Zimmerman's 911 call is when the dispatcher asks him, "Are you following him?" And George Zimmerman says, "Yes." Now, he brought that up during the reenactment. Everybody on our panel and at home, listen very closely, and then we're going to debate something he says.
They said, "Are you following him?" And I said, "Yes," because I was, in the area. And they said, "We don't need you to do that." And I said, "Okay." So that's when I walked straight through here to get the address so that I could meet the police officer. And then they said, I said, "He's not here." They said, "Do you still want him to come?" And I said, "Yes." And they said, "Where do you want him to come to?" And I said, "You know what, just tell him to meet me at my truck."
All right. Now, here's the thing that struck me about that. Okay, he acknowledges that the dispatcher says to him, "Are you following him?" And he says, "Yes." And the dispatcher says, "You don't need to do that." And then he says he keeps on walking because he's looking for an address to give the dispatcher so he can meet police. Now, the problem I have with that is if the dispatcher said, "You don't need to follow him," and he continues looking, even if he's saying he's looking for an address, he's still walking around after he was told by the dispatcher, basically, stand down. Frank Taffy, you're a friend of George Zimmerman. You live in the neighborhood. What's your response to that?
Jane, on that tape,
he was complicit with 911. They asked him not to follow. He said, okay, I'll do that. He was walking back to his truck. And that's the most darkest part of the entire complex where he was. And also, if you remember in the tape, they asked him, well, where are you at? What address do you want us to meet at? He says, I don't know. I can't see him. Did you not hear that part? He says, I don't know where he is. Please.
Well, okay,
listen
but
to
here's the other thing that he said. He said, well, my truck is right past the clubhouse, and if you make a turn after the clubhouse. So why couldn't
Jane,
he have just met the
said,
cop at the clubhouse?
Jane, he was back en route to the clubhouse, and his truck was parked right before the T. He was en route. He was complicit. He did not say to the operator, hey, F you, this is over, I'm done with you. He said, I will remain complicit. I'm on my way back to the clubhouse to meet you guys.
Hold on a second.
Let's be
Rolanda,
students.
do you have some thoughts on that? Does anybody on our panel have thoughts on that?
I got it.
Go ahead.
I have
That's why you
thoughts on
can't
that.
take it out of context, and that's why the jury should be sequestered
Hold on
and
a
only listen
second.
to the evidence
Hold
in
on a
court.
second. Rolanda.
Well, listen, the dispatcher told him that they did not need help. The dispatcher did not say, give me an address, go around tooling around looking for an address.
Let Rolanda finish. Let Rolanda
the dispatcher said, stay put, stay there. He can say whatever he wants. The bottom line is he didn't do what he was asked to do by the dispatcher.
Frank, you know.
Hold on 1 second. Michael.
Frank,
ahead,
you know,
Mike,
Frank, you know, if your friend George never got out of that car, Trayvon Martin is not dead. There's no murder trial of George Zimmerman today in Sanford, Florida. He did not listen to the police. He's changed his story 4 times. He changed his story 4 times. Hannity, 4 times.
He was at home. If Trayvon stayed at home,
he doesn't have a right to go to the store and get Skittles and iced tea.
He has a right to go to the store. How dare you?
All right, hold on, guys.
Go to the store.
I know it's heated.
It's 7 o'clock
Let's hang on for 1 second. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back with more of that tape.
I was hitting my head against it. It felt like my head was going to explode, and I thought I was going to lose consciousness. So I tried to squirm so that I could get, because he only had a small portion of my head on the concrete. So I tried to squirm off the concrete. And when I did that...
Should this reenactment tape be part of this trial, starting with Janie Weintraub, criminal defense attorney?
Well, I think it will be part of the trial, and I think that it's George Zimmerman. It'll be part of his defense.
Michael Skolnick, editor-in-chief, globalgrind.com. Do you think that reenactment video is something that should be played at the trial?
Sure, but I think actually more important than the reenactment video, George Zimmerman has to take the stand. If he wants to claim self-defense, if he wants the American people to believe him, he better take the stand. If he does not take the stand, he's a coward.
Now, here's my thought about this tape. And again, it's confusing. Watch the tape. It's out there on YouTube. We're going to play the tape over and over again as we start this trial. Different people can have different analyses, but I believe he kind of locks himself into a story here, Janie. And that could be a problem if he takes the stand, because he's very intricate in his details.
Jane, I don't think it's going to be a problem, because I think it's George Zimmerman's story to tell. I think it is his truth to tell. I mean, I can also tell you, I've worked with people on his defense team. I've worked with Robert Hirschhorn, the jury expert. I've worked with Don West. These are very experienced lawyers. They know what they're doing, and they're working very little money, if any. I think that this is George Zimmerman's story of what happened. I don't think George Zimmerman set out that night to kill anybody. I don't think when he was told to stand down, he went to kill somebody and to disregard what he was told.
All right.
I think he's
Michael,
a cop
I'm gonna give
wannabe,
you,
and you need to get it.
Yeah, well, first of all, Don West and Mark Ramirez said in court last week they're making $350 an hour for this case, so they are being paid. And secondly, George's interview with Fox News and Sean Hannity contradicts this tape, so he's got a lot of explaining to do in court.
Well, that's
sure
one of the things. Is the more you talk, then they match up what you said here, what you said here, and what you said here, and if there's any discrepancies, that can be a problem. More on the other side. Final thoughts on this tape, 30 seconds each, starting with Rolanda.
I just think that this is going to be a real case for these attorneys. They're going to have to find an impartial jury. That's going to take a while, and we just have to hope that justice will play itself out. I do believe that this is going to be our justice system at its best. I'm hoping that. that we will see it play itself out in the best that we can to find justice.
Frank Taffy, friend of George Zimmerman?
I think I'm a student of CSI. CSI is a common sense index. Let's apply common sense to this tragic scenario and move forward and let the legal system work.
Thank you all for participating in this heated but very important conversation.